My name's Olivia Sutton. I'm lead counselor in counseling services and also coordinate the Women's Resource Committee here on campus. On behalf of the WRC and the Multicultural Activities Committee, we'd like to welcome you to this year's Women's Forum. We used a national theme to help us bring a special presenter to our campus, and this year's theme is Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence. And we're so lucky to have many women in our community that are working so hard to bring peace, not only to our community, but to our nation at large, when they choose to advocate on behalf of victims of crime and people who are just going through difficult issues and some injustices in the world today, and people are just advocating so hard for them to bring services to them through counseling and support and advocacy. And we have chosen someone in our community that is working so hard now, to help victims of crime. But before we introduce our speaker, I'm going to ask Regina Garcia to come on stage so that she can lead us in an opening meditation. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Because I am a woman of a certain age, I need to make a recognition right now. We are just so happy to have with us Lieutenant Clemmy Jenkins German. She is the lieutenant of the Community Impact Division with the Pitt County Sheriff's Office, and she comes representing her brand new sheriff, Paula Dance, who is our first female sheriff in Pitt County. So would you please stand so people can see who you are? Just a day full of blessing. We have all of these powerful champions of peace with us today. Good morning. To all of you who are the gentle dew that forms after many nights of raging storms. For you are the peace that makes clear the vision, that seeks to eradicate division, that elicits change without use of human derision. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall see God. The peacemaker came bearing many gifts, an ability to listen, an ability to discern, an ability to comfort, an ability to yearn for others who did not have the strength to yearn for themselves. She operated in spite of her poverty or her wealth. She championed for her family. She championed for her friends. She championed for all the people whose struggle never seemed to end. A ferocious bearer of peace is a divine paradox that brings this world great relief to those who, for their stories to be addressed, their challenges laid to rest. She came bearing peace, even when part of her own stomach tangled at the thought of the evil that lurked in shadows cast by despair, and formulated plans of strategic salvation that would rescue the unaware and inform the others who cared to build an army of resources and other strong, steady spirits to peacefully dismantle the enemy's snare. She came bearing peace. And so on today, we celebrate the peaceful, visionary she's. For our beautiful brigade of bound and determined revolutionaries could never completely be complete without the peacemakers. Blessed is she. Blessed is she who comes bearing peace. And to continue in this vibe of peace, I would like to invite to the stage Mrs. Lisa Stockard and the PCC Chorale, who will come. I heard them practicing this morning like bells, beautiful. So I'm excited to hear what they have to offer us on this Women's Forum, this wonderful day in which we celebrate women. Let's give all the women a hand. And let's give the PCC Chorale a hand as they make their way. A beautiful brigade of women.
Thank you again to the crowd. I'll say good afternoon. It's after 12 now. My name is Sally Stone, and I'm a faculty member here at PCC and also a member of the Multicultural Activities Committee. And it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Leah Arnold. She clearly embodies our focus on visionary women who are champions of peace and nonviolence. I first heard of Miss Arnold when I happened to read an account of the week she spent as a volunteer attorney in Texas inside the country's largest jail for immigrant children and their mothers. I was so moved by her story, I knew I wanted to meet her and hear more from this advocate for human rights. We're fortunate to be able to bring her to you today. Leah Arnold is a staff attorney with Legal Aid of North Carolina's Battered Immigrant Project, BIP. She dedicates her practice to representing low-income immigrants who are victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and other forms of gender-based violence. She lives and works in Greenville while representing clients from all over the state. Prior to joining the BIP, she worked as a Clifton Everett Community Lawyer Fellow in New Bern. She earned her Juris Doctor from UNC School of Law in Chapel Hill and her graduate certificate from the UNC School of Social Work. She received her BS in journalism from the University of Florida with her certificate in Latin American Studies. Prior going to law school, she lived in southern Spain, where she was a teaching assistant at a public school with a large migrant population. She is passionate about gender equality, and she has committed her career to advancing the rights of women and girls. Ms. Arnold, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally. It's truly an honor to be here today with all of you. Thank you. When I heard this year's Women's History Month theme, Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence, something inside of me immediately fixated on those two words, peace and nonviolence. Because when I hear the words peace and nonviolence, it's hard for me to not immediately start thinking of all the places in our world where those things are lacking. And when I think of the words peace and nonviolence in the context of Women's History Month, it's hard not to think about the fact that 1 in 3 women and girls will be a victim of physical or sexual violence at some point in their lives. It's hard not to remember that half of all women who are killed worldwide are killed as a result of domestic or family violence. The United Nations calls violence against women and girls one of the most widespread, persistent, and devastating human rights violations in our world today. Around the world and here at home, women are deeply affected by the consequences of violence. So the way I see it, Women's History Month is a chance, is an opportunity for us to both remember and reflect, to remember all that women have survived throughout history and reflect on all that women have accomplished and contributed and achieved despite obstacles. Because throughout history, visionary women have championed peace and nonviolence, and in doing so have made the world we live in today a better place. Now, much of this championing of peace and nonviolence has been born out of excruciating necessity. If you look in the history books or just at the news today, you will see plenty of distress and lots of violence. I have some personal experience with this because these days the bulk of my day-to-day work is spent confronting some of that violence head on, looking at it soberly, honestly, unflinchingly, and then doing what I can in my own way to champion healing and justice in its place. For me, that looks like being an advocate for survivors of violence who are trying to navigate an endlessly complicated and often unfair legal system. The clients I represent are all survivors of various forms of violence: domestic abuse, rape, child abuse, human trafficking. And they're also all immigrants, folks who were born somewhere else, but who, for one reason or another, find themselves here in the United States, in a country that offers both hope and hardships for those who choose to make their home here. Every day in my work, I am both challenged by the brutality of the world and inspired by the resilience that women exhibit in response to it. So today, I want to share a couple of stories of that strength and resilience with you. Maria, not her real name, was born in Latin America, but brought to the United States by men who, unbeknownst to her, were human traffickers. After arriving in Texas, she was pushed into a rundown cantina near the border and locked inside. Unsure as to when she would be let out, she began to worry. Soon, two men came into the room where she was trapped, and they raped her. She cried out for help. That didn't come. Later, more men came into the room, this time raping her in exchange for money that they paid to the traffickers. For several days, strange men cycled in and out of the building, handing over money to the traffickers in exchange for the chance to abuse Maria. Every so often, an unknown woman would enter the building and leave some food for Maria to eat. The traffickers probably paid this woman a nominal amount of money to deliver the food that was keeping Maria alive. One day, that woman called Maria over and told her something that would save her life. She told Maria that the men were gone and the traffickers weren't hanging around the building that day. Usually they were around the vicinity. Today was her chance to run, to escape. Maria thanked the woman, gathered up her courage, and ran. She was able to leave the vicinity undetected, and she walked and walked through the desert until she found a Customs and Border Patrol agent, and she turned herself in, asking for help. She was arrested, detained, and deportation proceedings were started against her. Eventually, and thankfully, she was released to North Carolina, where some of her relatives lived, so that she could live here while she awaited the rest of her legal process. And that's how I met her. At first, Maria had a hard time talking about what had happened to her, and when she was first offered legal assistance, she actually turned it down because the trauma was still too fresh and intense for her. She quickly found herself in a new relationship here in North Carolina, but her new boyfriend was abusive. He punched her, pulled her hair, threatened her. And one day, when she tried to defend herself, her abusive boyfriend lied to authorities and claimed she was the abuser, and she ended up charged with assault, even though she was the victim. So at this point, Maria was traumatized from what she had been through, and she was now facing two separate proceedings: deportation proceedings in immigration court and criminal proceedings for the retaliatory action of her abusive boyfriend. And if this situation sounds ridiculous to you, please know this: she's not alone. We often see victims getting caught up in the legal system with cases against them, whether it be deportation proceedings or retaliatory criminal cases, while the abusers and perpetrators go free. It's a reminder of how much work we still have to do within our systems of justice to ensure that survivors are offered safety and not further trauma, and to ensure that abusers can't use the justice system as a tool to further their abuse and control. Eventually, Maria's assault charge was dismissed. She left her abusive boyfriend, and I was able to represent her in an immigration application for a special human trafficking visa. We were able to file her case thanks to the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, a federal law that provides humanitarian visas for victims and survivors of trafficking who meet certain strict requirements. After close to 2 years of waiting and living in limbo, her visa was finally approved. Today, she has the ability to live and work here legally, and while she's got a long road ahead of her, she is in the process of courageously rebuilding her life here in North Carolina. Then there's Lucia, again, not her real name, who was brought to the United States as a very young child, as a toddler. When she was 13 years old, in the midst of problems at home and teenage angst, she ran away from home. She was at a bus stop when she was approached by an older man who offered to give her a place to stay for free. Soon, though, he started forcing her to work at a strip club. Then he started forcing her to have sex with men for money, but he would keep all of her earnings for himself. When she refused to obey his orders, he would get mad and beat her. He burned her body with cigarettes, punched her, kicked her, tied her up in a closet, and broke beer bottles over her head. Finally, she was able to escape the house, but then was arrested for being a runaway and put into juvenile detention as a runaway. Once in juvenile detention, the injuries on her body were noticed and authorities were alerted to what had happened to her. Her trafficker was arrested, and after she bravely testified against him in court, he was convicted and sent to prison. However, because Lucia was brought to the United States without papers as a very young child, she was now facing a different problem. She was facing the risk of deportation to a country that she did not know that was also full of violence. That's when the Battered Immigrant Project stepped in. We helped Lucia win a case for a special humanitarian visa meant for crime victims who cooperate with law enforcement. Once we won that case, she received temporary protection from deportation and the chance to apply for a green card after 3 years. In 2017, I helped Lucia win her case for lawful permanent residence. She is now a permanent resident green card holder in the United States. She hopes to go to college, and she wants to become a nurse one day so that she can help others. It's stories like these that keep me and my coworkers going when the violence feels like it might just be too much to bear. Some may believe that the only response to violence of this level is more violence. But I like the Gandhi quote, "An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind." Instead, we respond to this violence through victim-centered, trauma-informed legal representation, working to uplift survivors and secure a form of justice for them that affords them legal status, work authorization, and the opportunity to heal and grow and rebuild. After having devoted myself to this line of work for a few years, I decided to take on a new challenge last year and travel to the US-Mexico border region. I worked with a lot of women here in North Carolina who had told me stories about their experiences in the border region, but I wanted to see it for myself. So I put in my request for vacation days and started planning a trip to Dilley, Texas. Dilley, Texas is the location of the South Texas Family Residential Center, which is the largest detention facility for migrant mothers and their children. There are 2,400 beds in that facility, and every one is for a migrant mother with a child. There are no women traveling alone, and there are no men in the facility. It's all moms and kids. The moms, babies, toddlers, and kids inside the detention center have not been tried or convicted of any crimes, yet there they are, most of them locked up for seeking safety in our country. The government calls it a family residential center, but to be honest, anyone who's been there knows that it's a euphemism for a prison. I spent a week there, and I can't say I was fully prepared for what I saw. Most days it felt like practicing law in a daycare with the backdrop of babies crying, kids coughing, toddlers running around, except it wasn't a daycare. After all, daycares don't typically have guards watching your every move and barbed wire surrounding the perimeter. My job while I was there was mostly to listen to the stories of the women. After listening, I would very quickly mentally process everything I had just heard and then provide the mother in front of me with a coherent analysis of her legal claim. But without volunteer attorneys spending their own time and resources to go down there, none of these mothers inside that facility would have been able to talk to a lawyer about her case before having to present her case in front of an asylum officer. Because unlike criminal defendants, immigrant detainees do not have the constitutional right to a lawyer or public defender. About halfway through the week, a young mother sat down in front of me to tell me her story. I listened as she told me about being gang raped inside her own home, while her 3-year-old son was forced to watch. And then the gang members raped her sister, who happened to be home at the same time. This young mother had been specifically targeted by this gang because of her relationship to her husband, a security guard who had defied the gang, refused to join them, and had recently gone missing. I watched as her eyes filled with tears as she told me what the gang members told her that day. They said, "If you don't pay us money, we will come back and do to your son as we have done to you and your sister." I listened as she told me then about watching a gang member hand cash to a police officer in her neighborhood, making it clear to everyone on that block that the police were being bribed by the gang, and making her feel that she had nowhere to turn for help. In the midst of her own suffering and trauma, she knew one thing: she was not going to let her son be harmed. She was and is a brave, strong, resilient, amazing mother, and I'm proud to have women like her in our country. The stories like this are endless, and as I think about the theme of this year's Women's History Month, with its focus on peace and nonviolence, it's not lost on me that this theme describes exactly what these mothers are desperately searching for. Thousands of women have been locked up along our border or are living in the shadows here among us right at this moment in our state because they are seeking a measure of peace and shelter from violence. Their plight begs the question: who are we as a country? Who are we as fellow women? And what will our legacy be? I deeply believe that women are at an amazing inflection point in history. Across the nation and around the world, women are reclaiming our voices, assuming positions of power and influence in our communities. We've made remarkable progress in so many areas. What we still need and what we are always working towards is a full-scale social and cultural shift in our attitudes towards women and towards violence against women. I also believe that each one of us, no matter what our gender identity or gender expression may be, has a mix of passion and energy and anger and love and empathy swirling around inside of us. That is our fuel. Whatever you are feeling, harness that. That is what we use to make the world better, more peaceful, less violent. That is what visionary women all throughout history have harnessed in their bold moves to bring us a more just and a more equal world. For me, it's using my legal background to advocate for victims and survivors of horrible crimes. For you, it's probably something else. We each have our own way of showing up in the world and doing the work that needs to be done. It is our responsibility to find the ways in which we can contribute personally to the greater good. After all, I truly believe that we are the visionary women we've been waiting for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Leah. She has agreed to take a few questions from the audience if anybody would like to ask her some things. And there is a microphone right here, so she'll bring it to you if you have a question.
I have one question. Is this on?
Yes,
Is it? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
As a room full of people that may wonder, what can we do in our own little world to help with this effort? Are there any suggestions that you have for anybody in the audience that may want to get involved in some way?
Sure, there are all sorts of ways to get involved, and I really think that there's no one-size-fits-all action for me to tell you all to go do, because I think that's going to come from your own heart, from your own experience, from your own life. I will say that here in Pitt County, we have a lot of great organizations fighting violence against women. We have the Center for Family Violence Prevention that does a lot of great work, and that I'm sure can always use volunteers and support and contributions. We have MXCAN, which does a lot of work with immigrant communities and migrant communities. So I would start with those two organizations if you're looking for a place to volunteer. And keep your heart open. I think a lot can change in the world if we keep our hearts open to each other and to their stories instead of closed off.
So one right here.
So I think everybody, first of all, thank you so much for having this really great topic and interesting. But I think that everybody, when they see somebody who they suspect maybe they're in their situation, would want to help and would want to help champion the peace and nonviolence. But sometimes we don't know what to do. So if we come across someone who thinks in this situation, who should we put them in contact with? How do we help them in a very practical sense here in Greenville?
Right, that's a good question. So it really depends on the situation. Obviously, if there's an emergency, we have great law enforcement here who can respond. And if you see someone in a situation where their life may be at risk or they're risking harm, by all means, you can always contact law enforcement. As far as shelter goes, we also have a shelter here. We're very lucky with the Center for Family Violence Prevention to have that available if you encounter someone who is in an unsafe situation in their house and needs to get out. Legal Aid of North Carolina, where I work, we assist folks for free with domestic violence protective orders. So they can always call Legal Aid if they want a domestic violence protective order against an abuser, and that's something we can help with. For folks who have intersecting immigration concerns, we can help with that as well, and that's what I do. And we're always happy to take direct referrals from folks in the Greenville community and do what we can to help.
Other questions? Anybody? Virginia?
Maybe
You don't need this.
Okay, I guess my question for you would be, we have a captive audience here. Many of them are students, and oftentimes students are looking for opportunities to volunteer. So is there anything specific to the organization that you work for that perhaps they can plug into to be of assistance, to be able to volunteer and to make a difference in the community?
Yes, so Legal Aid does have limited opportunities for internships for folks who are interested in interning in a legal aid office. We have a legal aid office here and many throughout the state, and they all take interns, and all of our offices do a lot of domestic violence protective order work. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, that's something that you may be able to maybe shadow a domestic violence attorney for a day or go to court and see what that is like. I know with my project, with the Battered Immigrant Project, we can always use volunteers who are bilingual. That is a huge need. Bilingual in any language can be helpful depending on the client base, but Spanish is the most helpful. I am bilingual, but a lot of times we have to do interpretation or do translations for declarations, and several of those can be very long. So that's something that we've had students do in the past, is sign a confidentiality agreement and then help us with translating client stories so that they can tell their story in a meaningful way for their immigration application.
Question here? Oh, there's one here, and then there's one back there, and one all the way back in the right.
Hi. Everybody on this row is in the paralegal program. So I was wondering if you could talk about any pro bono type work or even professional things, ways for paralegals to get involved in helping with this or any other cause.
Right. Well, that's great that you're all paralegals, and are some of you looking to maybe go to law school one day too? I'm seeing some nods. Okay. I started out at a community college, and I got my AA first, and then transferred to get my bachelor's degree, and then ended up at law school. So, proud community college grad. Keep it up. So Legal Aid has paralegal positions that we will occasionally fill throughout the state. I think right now we have a couple that are open. Our farm worker unit also hires paralegals, and that's the unit of Legal Aid that goes out into the fields where migrant farm workers are working and gives Know Your Rights presentations. So if this is something that is calling to you and you feel like you really maybe want to do this after graduation, reach out to Legal Aid for potential volunteer or internship opportunities, because we can always use paralegal help, and like I said, we hire paralegals in a lot of our projects. Yeah. Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo está usted?
Just to mention, right here at PCC, we just started a new program, which is the outreach program.
Oh, fantastic.
The person in charge of, the specialist of that. I'm not the person in charge, but the specialist recruiting and all that. One of the things that I want to offer you as part of it is if you need some help in regards to translations, etc. For that matter, I'll be more than available for that. My job is pretty ample.
Yeah.
And it will include the educational helping the Spanish-speaking community, but not only Spanish-speaking, but also other communities. So, but this is brand new section of the educational system.
That's wonderful. So great to hear that you'll have that. Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a quick volunteer pitch off of what you were saying. I am going back to the Dilley Detention Center that I spoke about for migrant women, April 28th through May 3rd. I am happy to be taking some Greenville attorneys with me. Not all of them speak Spanish, and we've pretty much paired all of the English-speaking attorneys up with a translator to go down, but we still need one more interpreter. So if you or someone you know is bilingual and is interested in actually going into the detention center and spending a week with our group and helping interpret for attorneys, please come talk to me after this.
Thank you so much for coming today. And I just wanted to ask, Legal Aid provides services to undocumented people in Greenville as well, is that correct?
For undocumented survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Yes. yes, that is the population that we focus on due to limited resources.
Anybody else? You see anybody else? Hang tight 1 second. So, wanted to offer you a little token of our appreciation for your coming and thank you. This is wonderful. And while we're doing advertising, I just thought I'd do a little pitch here for the paralegal program. If this has you excited to go and work with victims of domestic violence or undocumented people in any way, a good way to skill up for that is to take some paralegal classes and get your paralegal credential, and we'll take you this summer. So I have cards at my desk. Now we want to get to the other big thing that we're doing today, which is to give the Women of Substance Award to the award winner. And the person who's going to give that today is Susan Nobles, who is sitting somewhere. There she is, Susan Nobles. Susan is the Vice President for Institutional Advancement, and she was our Woman of Substance in 2014. And so I'm going to turn the microphone over to her.
Wow, it's really hard to follow that. You stirred my heart. Thank you for what you're doing. But I will follow it because we're going to talk about some amazing women who are doing some amazing things. And we're proud of PCC women. It's my pleasure to have the honor to award the 18th annual PCC Woman of Substance Award. This award is co-sponsored by PCC's Multicultural Activities Committee and the SGA. It was created in the 2001-2002 academic year to recognize and encourage outstanding women who are role models who are employed at Pitt Community College. The following characteristics for this award are very important. These women are involved on the PCC campus, involved in the community. They're willing to go the extra mile. They demonstrate an attitude of service, commitment, and caring. They're outstanding role models for women on our campus, for employees and students. Previous recipients of the Woman of Substance Award are as follows: Amy Hines, Renee Arrington, Pamela Dale, Dr. Wanda Bunch, Regina Garcia, Marguerite Stevens, Kathy Clark, Leslie Rogers, Angela Martin, Christina Weeks, Marguerite Parker, Betty Foreman, Susan Nobles, Ty Davis, Sadette Boyce Brown, Dr. Kristen Braswell, and last year's recipient, Lori Priest. By the way, in case you're wondering, the title of this award is adopted from the book named Hell's Bells, that's Belles, Famous Women of the South, a tribute to the Spitfires, Bad Seeds, and Steel Magnolias of the New and the Old South. This year, we received 15 nominations representing 8 women among our faculty, staff, administration, curriculum, and continuing education. The nominations documented the many outstanding characteristics and accomplishments of these women. A few of the words used to describe the nominees are as follows: eager to help, student advocate, role model, energetic, caring, awesome, passionate, outstanding character, servant leader, professional, values people before other people before themselves, has a warm smile, doesn't seek self-recognition, values education, and she really gives. I like that. I can truly say that PCC is a better place because of these women. I'll ask the nominees to come forward this afternoon as I call your name. We have 8 nominees. We'd like for them each to come forward on the stage and receive a certificate of appreciation. First, Mary Ann Cox, Assistant Vice President of Institutional Advancement. Mary Ann is at the Chamber of Commerce Leadership Program today. Catherine Clyde, Dean of Business. Catherine. Faith Fagan, Director of Teaching and Learning. Oh, excuse me, you're not the Director of Teaching and Learning. I gave you a new title. Faith Fagan, Administrative Assistant to Public Services and Fine Arts. Thank you, Faith. Happy Gingras, who is actually the Director of Teacher and Learning. Anna Jones, Coordinator, Institutional Research. Dr. Tabitha Miller, Director of Title III Grant. Donna Neal, Dean of Health Sciences. And Rebecca Warren, Coordinator of the Visions College Program. Let's give them all a hand. So if you'll hold on just a moment. Bob, I think you want a photo of that? You can let you take a seat, because I've got a lot to say about this next person, so I'll call one of you back up. Let me tell you something. That is a lot of awesome that just was come on this stage. And you know, it is so wonderful to read the nominations because I just get more and more excited. And the board members and foundation board member who helped to select them, they said, wow, this is just, it's very difficult to choose. They're all so great. However, we were tasked to choose one. And as we did, these are some of the comments from the nominations. Our 2019 recipient of the PCC Woman of Substance Award is an outstanding, dedicated employee whose efforts on behalf of PCC have made a difference because of her heart and passion for students and for her willingness to reach across campus throughout the community to find support for students and for PCC. One nominator wrote, "She is the epitome of woman of substance. She is a strong leader and a hard worker. She is an encourager. She is accessible and very visible to our division and across campus. Her dedication to the college and the community makes it evident that she is a woman of substance and leadership." Another wrote, "She's the epitome of a professional in all situations. For someone who is relatively small in stature, she leaves a very large footprint on our college. She is a proponent of using data to guide decision making. She is a master of planning and accountability. She is committed to identifying and resolving achievement gaps directly related to equity among the underserved, underrepresented, and under-resourced students. She's dedicated to helping students achieve their goals and prepare for outstanding careers. She'd rather see her faculty and students succeed than receive recognition for her personal influence. In addition to successfully maintaining program accreditations with agencies, she has helped develop one of the most outstanding health science divisions in the state." Oh, but there's more. You know, there were so many of you who wrote so many beautiful things, we got to share them. She has authored many grants, partnered with many agencies, and championed many efforts to provide facilities and equipment to offer excellent health science programs. The development of the new hospital simulation lab was a collaborative effort, but it was led by this woman of substance. She was crucial in PCC's successful reaffirmation of accreditation of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges in 2012, and she worked on multiple sections on the 2018 five-year report. She has served as an interim vice president of academic affairs, an active member of the instructional leadership team, founding co-chair of the Student Success Action Council Data Committee, and was a leader in submitting the application for PCC to become a member of the 2019 Achieving the Dream cohort. One nominator wrote, "I appreciate her vision and commitment to seeing things to fruition. A good leader works within the system to get the tools and resources to the faculty and staff so they can do their jobs better than even they could have imagined." Another wrote, "I come to work every day happy to serve as I want to make Dean Neal proud because I'm proud of her too." Another wrote, "For years, I've commented that Dean Neal is the entire package, hence her title, The Real Deal Neal." Donna is a steel magnolia that provides leadership with compassion, common sense, and caring. We follow and support her because she has earned our respect. We want to do better because she genuinely cares for us, and more importantly, she cares for our students. I just want to tell you, when you have the entire Department of Nursing and each individual write a nomination in addition to a number of other nominators, it was a very difficult choice. But Donna, you are the real deal, Neal. Please join me now in recognizing our 2019 Woman of Substance Award recipient, Donna Neal, Dean of Health Sciences.
Well, I wasn't really prepared for speaking. And thank you all. Anything that I'll accomplish, I do it because I'm surrounded by people who support me and people who help me. I didn't do this I don't do any of this by myself. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
Should I ask people to receive?
Madonna,
Sorry. Don't see anybody. There's somebody on the phone. Okay.
Is Vandana Shrivastava here? She's going to come up real quick and tell you about another event that's going on in March real quick. And then after she finishes, we dismiss, and please feel free to partake of our refreshments in the back. And thank you all for coming. It was absolutely fabulous.
So next Wednesday, 20th, we are going to meet and discuss the book I'm Malala. So that's our read for campus this year. And so I welcome everybody next Wednesday. And documentary film, and those who have read the book. So we have been, some of us are reading the book, so we are going to talk about the book and little history and see the film. So I welcome everybody.
It's at noon on?
12 o'clock, 12 to 3.
12 to 3 in Leslie.
Leslie 143. Yeah.
We'll send out one.
Yeah, we'll send. I don't have all those details. I'm sorry, but it's a very exciting book. Again, it's again peace and nonviolence, how women can achieve. And this young girl who got the Nobel Prize, she was shot in Pakistan for advocating for women's education, girls and women, but she never gave up. So we are going to talk about that. Thank you.